Testing? Okay.
Hopefully.
Everyone here for the TestGrid and new talk, just to check.
If you're interested in the new contributor one, the rooms got switched, and you want to be over there.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Sorry to get started late, but welcome. This is TestGrid and you. I'm Michelle. This is Sean. We both work at Google. We're on SIG testing, and we work on TestGrid. So welcome, and I hope your contributor summit has been good so far. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so just to get started, what is TestGrid? TestGrid is a highly configurable interactive dashboard for viewing your test results in a grid. It is pretty self-descriptive, or at least I think so, but if you want to get a look at the code and some of the guides we have, it is on github.com, Google Cloud Platform /TestGrid. We used to have it in Test Infra, but it's now been moved into its shiny new home where it can grow all to itself and not interfere with other things in Test Infra. And internet permitting, I will also show a little bit of how it works. Okay, cool. Yeah, so basic overview, I'm going to go fast, but this is the dashboard index. This basically shows off a bunch of the organization. You can see that this has the test results for a lot of the SIGs, including our very own SIG testing down here. SIG testing has a dashboard group for all of its stuff with a lot of dashboards because we run tests on lots of parts of test infra. Similarly, there's a lot of other SIGs that also have the results here, or some other projects like some stuff under Google, Red Hat, and more if you also want to join. But for now, I'm going to go find a particular thing that I was looking at. No. There we go. Handy given the number of dashboards there are on TestGrid. All right. So let's say that I was looking at this and I want to debug. I can see that there's a lot of passes and failures happening here, but I kind of want to look in a little bit more. Maybe I'm used to looking at this by alphabetically, so I can sort by name. And you can kind of see like there's a lot of results here. So I decide, let's go back. I'll go ahead and do by failures again, which is default. I'll go ahead and crunch it so I can see results over more days. So now we can see like the last couple days. And maybe I want to see if this has been happening a lot. Turns out like does look like it's been kind of a pattern, so it doesn't look like anything that's cropped up super recently. There's likely just some flaky tests that are causing these kinds of results. Or maybe something with the environment. But let's say I want to look at seeing if maybe some of these are correlated with particular functions or tags. We can see that these tests are tagged with like SIG API machinery, SIG storage, SIG scheduling, etc. I'm going to head and group by regex mass. And this one is basically just once you apply the regex, anything that has the same string will be grouped together under one row. All right, so we can see now that it's grouped with all of the things with the same tag. And we can kind of see that there's like, a lot of these are doing fine. Most of these are due to some of the tests under some of these specifically. We can expand out to see exactly which ones. SIG CLI, it turns out, does have a lot of tests. And if I want, I can even see which ones have been only failing, or sorry, which ones have had at least one failing result for the entire thing. My bad on that. So yeah, this basically shows off a lot of like how this might be useful for debugging, but there's also a lot of other features. So when we say highly configurable and interactive, there's a lot of stuff that we have brought to external, and we are also hoping to do more as we continue to open source. And I'll go ahead and hand to Sean.
Yeah. Can everyone hear me okay? Perfect. So clearly this is incredible and amazing, and everyone wants to use it. So how do you do that? Well, we have a README. But effectively, what we have is a YAML configuration that describes, I want these dashboards, I want these dashboard groups and these dashboard tabs, and I'm going to point to this JUnit information, which shows what my logs are. So you just say, like, I want this test, and here's where the logs are. Please draw the pretty graph. Can you turn that off? I'm getting feedback, I think. Okay. That's all you need. A YAML configuration and JUnit logs somewhere, usually in cloud storage. And you can have the pretty graph. But if you are using Prow, which is an open source CI/CD system that the entire Kubernetes community uses, you need neither of those things because Prow will do it for you. TestGrid can read Prow annotations with a particular program we have called Configurator. So instead of specifying, I want this dashboard and this tab and this job, you can just write directly on the job, this job should have tests, put it on this dashboard, email this person when it breaks. And it's very quick and very easy, and it's right next to the job. In addition, you don't have to worry about where the logs actually are, because the pod utility that goes with your little test with Prow automatically uploads all of your logs to GCS. Or, yeah, it is, yeah. And then once that's uploaded, you have your results. And so Prow does both of those things for you. In addition, if you're using an instance of Prow that isn't the Kubernetes instance of Prow, we have another utility called Transfigure that lets you take the configuration of your instance of Prow and pass it along so that it can be used on that pretty dashboard that we had earlier. So that's configuring it. That's getting it up and running. Perhaps you're more interested in how it works. Maybe you want to help contribute. Thank you. But it works primarily through the magic of protocol buffers. Protocol buffers are a serialized data format. They're like XML or JSON. They're not self-descriptive. They need to have something that goes with it that describes how it works. So if you look into our repository, you'll see files that end in .proto, and that describes all of the data structures we use. And we use these data structures as an intermediate layer. So we have some component that creates some data and puts it into a protocol buffer in cloud storage, and then another component picks that up and kind of passes it along down the chain. And by using it as an integration layer like this, you can kind of keep things separate. Let me show you what I mean. We have cloud storage. It holds data in Protos. We have modules, which are asynchronously reading and writing these Protos. The config files, or the output of Configurator if you're using Prow, gets read in from GitHub. Then that goes into cloud storage. Then another piece takes it from cloud storage and actually goes and gets the JUnit information. So it gets the actual results, what passed, what succeeded, historical data, that kind of thing. And then it writes it back to cloud storage in a different proto. This one's the state proto. And then the front end reads the state proto and actually displays the pretty graph. And these three pieces are all working continuously and asynchronously, so they don't have to wait for each other necessarily. And that gives you the kind of availability that we saw. We ran it on convention Wi-Fi and it didn't break. It was great.
Yeah, so that's the core thing, is basically taking like config, updating, storing, and then displaying on the front end. But we have a bunch of other modules that do some of the other things around TestGrid as well. So for instance, we have the summarizer, which takes the state.proto, all of the updated test results from your tests, and then writes a summary proto. And you can see that it produces things that we render in the front end, like here. So it has a list of the tests that are failing. It has how well the dashboard has been doing with recent runs, whether it's like continuous failures or like some spotty failures or completely green. And it has a couple other things like when did it last update, when did test last run, and is there a latest like run that was completely green in a column. We have a few other ones as well. So Alerter, for instance, will take the summary proto and send you email alerts whenever new failures occur. An entomologist will grab issues that are related to failing tests, and it can associate those on the table so that you can see links to bugs. Theoretically, you could also do other things given the protos here. So let's say you wanted to say, instead of just emailing for alerts, auto-open an issue that has some information about failing tests. One thing you could do is take the summary proto, which has a list of the failing tests for each dashboard tab, use the GitHub API to open an issue against like a configured repository, for instance, and then update something called issuestate.proto, where we store all of the test bugs and how they are linked to TestGrid. So with that, you get your failing tests, you get information from what we already gathered in summary on failing tests that you could add to an issue, and that gets linked back to tests in TestGrid, which would be pretty sweet. Yeah, so that's a basic overview of how it works. We have some more docs on the repo as well, which we'll be continually updating. In terms of what we're doing in the immediate future and then into next year, right now, a lot of what we're doing is, because this was an internal Google project for so long, there's some things that like kind of diverge between the internal and external versions that we are working on cleaning up. And Sean has also been working a lot to make this a lot easier to get onboarded with, so you can use it with your test results. You can use it from different repos and not just like putting everything manually into the Kate's repo, things like that. And then next year, we're basically charging ahead on continuing to open source, depending on like shifting priorities as we find that things are going to be more impactful. But we also have a issue that's open in Google Cloud Platform TestGrid issue 51. And that has just things if you want to list like use cases that you would find useful. You want to use TestGrid for your own thing. You want to see some new cool stuff. Feel free to list it there. If any of you remember from last year, there was an issue open in Test Infra that has similar things. I've linked that issue. Feel free to like bump up some of your stuff if you find that like it's still relevant as we continue working. And yeah, if you want to help, thanks a bunch in advance. There's a bunch of ways you can help us, and they're not all just trying to build Autobug, for instance. So just using TestGrid is really cool, and then letting us know how it works, or if you need any improvements. You can now get TestGrid set up from other repos and then have those put into the Kate's instance until we get more open source and more instances that you could run on. So feel free to help set up TestGrid. If you find things that are like wrong or missing, or you have like some cool features that you think would be awesome to add to TestGrid, feel free to file issues against us in the new repo. We will take a look at that and use that to help prioritize our work as well. And feel free to add code. The repo's kind of in a work in progress state as we are getting started open sourcing it, but definitely feel free to like run a quick design by us in the SIG testing channel, and we can help you with how it's best to go forward on that. Especially if we can help prioritize like getting this piece of code out will definitely make it much easier for you to develop that, and we think it'd be really awesome. So yeah, thanks everyone. Left a link to the repo in case you want to see it again. And Sean and I, as well as other people who know about TestGrid, are hanging out in SIG testing channel usually. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah.
Cool. In which case,
Yeah, if there aren't any questions, we'll be hanging out if you come up with something or want to talk about TestGrid. Other than that, that's yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
We have some stickers at the front as well if you want some for TestGrid or Prow. And Sean, do you want to talk about the SIG testing intro talk as well for when is that happening?
If I spoke about Prow and you don't know what Prow is or have questions about Prow, that talk is on Wednesday at 10:35, where I will go over Prow and that CI/CD system, and then maybe that slide will make a little bit more sense.
I I think it kind of depends on exactly what you want to do. Like TestGrid and Proud play nicely together. So if you want to do something like, Sean, your first work was on kind of making those play together better. And like Catherine, you've also done stuff on like Proud annotations starting at all. So it's a lot easier to configure it with Proud. So things like that, like knowing Proud does help definitely, but you could also get started with like, you're a user of TestGrid and you see some stuff that like you think TestGrid could do better. Like for instance, another thing I know if we go back to summaries is like, this is some amount of info, but like there's definitely more that you could collect, especially if it's like expensive to create and store, because that's the main like benefit that we have of storing things asynchronously is like you can grab it very quickly and you can do like as long as you want on the back end, like gathering those results. So if you want like a super summary with like something over the entire dashboard, complicated statistics or something, like that could work.
Yeah.
So I understand this whole test grid is kind of a dashboard, but where the actual tests are executed? Is there a separate infrastructure?
So, TestGrid is very interesting in that it helps to visualize tests, but just TestGrid does not deal with actually executing your tests. It reads your test results and tries to make sense of them, usually for use cases where you have insane amounts of test results, like Kubernetes. There's a lot of data. For Kubernetes, those tests are run with Prow, but whatever CI/CD solution you use to run your tests is independent of TestGrid. So long as your results wind up in a JUnit format, TestGrid will just read them.
I know, for instance, that there are some people who also write JUnit format, and I believe use Jenkins to do so. So, yeah, exactly. So TestGrid won't handle running it, but it should handle like if it's in that format, it works. Cool. Anybody else? All right. Thanks all. And feel free to come find us later if you have any other questions, or as noted, like we have some docs on the repo. We'll be working on getting those more detailed as well with some of the stuff about the architecture and whatnot. So. Thanks.
Thank you.